the only way to move forward is to keep looking back. What? That is the exact opposite of what my parents told me all my life. And this is just part of the problem with this game. Hello, I am Locke. This is Maya, and I kinda wish I kept playing Wasteland 3. I'm a big adventure game fan. Even walking simulators like Gone Home and Ethan Carter are my thing. But for me, this game was a very slow and below average experience in many ways, and I'll tell you why. There's a lot to say about Tell Me Why and its theme. It's an interesting adventure game by the makers of Life is Strange, so it obviously deals with many woke and progressive themes in general, but for what it's worth, those things are treated much like they would in a real life situation here. Everything's pretty natural in a good way. Nothing feels forced, even though the story revolves around the LGBTQ+ Super Champion Edition final battle themes of acceptance and family violence. It's a pretty dark game. You play a pair of ex-identical twins, I guess. One of them, an adult woman, is called Allison, and the other is a transgender man called Tyler. And in some flashbacks he's Ollie for some reason. Tyler lived most of his life in a juvenile correctional facility after murdering their mother in self-defense 10 years before the game's events. And the game's story revolves heavily around that murder and its consequences, of the motives that led their mother to turn hostile towards them, and about the moment of truth. They spend the whole chapter roaming through old memories of their house and family friends in search for answers that should have been long forgotten. The subplot of the game is that they are trying to sell their childhood home, so Allison can get out of that Alaskan city and go to a slightly bigger Alaskan city nearby. The game is divided in chapters. There's only one chapter out now, but the next one will be out on the 3rd of September, and the last one will be out on the 10th. And much like in Life is Strange, this game also features supernatural powers. The twins have the ability to use their minds to communicate telepathically, something they call the voice, and can also revive memories together in real life. It's a very interesting setting with lots of potential, but the narrative sometimes is very lacking and inconsistent. I wish I could say more stuff about it, but I'd be spoiling the first chapter for you, and it's just a very inconsistent experience in general on this first chapter, and it's also pretty long. It's a 2-hour chapter, a little longer than what I expected from a chapter-based game. Graphically, the game is abysmal, and it's also beautiful. It looks like shit, but it also looks great. If we're talking about the scenarios and backgrounds, it's a beautiful game. The wintry mountains of Alaska make for a unique setting full of life and light. But the white vastness of the cold snow creates an awesome contrast with the lively clothes and buildings of Delos Crossing. But the character animation's shit. They always look dull and dead inside. Their whole animations are terrible, and their faces always have this stone-cold murdering look about them. And that actually hurts the game a lot. You can't talk about serious fucking issues with a dead face like that. And I know it's hard to ask for an experience like LA Noire or The Last of Us 2, but what the fuck, man? It's 2020! And this game had Microsoft money injected into it. How can something convey emotion when the character faces look like the ones in GoldenEye 64? This is the right game, right? Okay, moving on. The UI is pretty simple and clean, and interacting with stuff is just a matter of pointing at them and clicking. The conversation system is great here. It's an optional system. It gives you the chance to answer or not most questions and gives you a timer so the pacing doesn't get killed. But the button scheme on the keyboard sucks a bit though, as it's pretty inconsistent. Sometimes you scroll elements with the mouse wheel, others you need to press a button. More interaction options would be much better, as you usually want to play some things with just a mouse in these games and leave the keyboard just for navigating the map. On the controller, you don't have any issues. It's clearly more geared towards that. But I'll be dead before I play an adventure game on a controller. The game structure is another problem for me. Everything works in a very corridorsy way. You don't have any freedom to explore the town, and that is probably due to the episodic format they are following with it. It couldn't possibly let you explore, because then you would have access to closed content, and this is just episode 1. But I can't shake the feeling of playing stages in a sequential experience. Much more like a movie than the usual adventure game. It sometimes takes a lot of time to change sequences too, like the ferry boat ride at the beginning of the game that takes longer than a real world ferry boat ride, and the market scene. The game is just way too much in the on-rails side of things. This legitimately feels like I'm playing Final Fantasy XIII. Only the characters are well written. Sorry, Snow. What reminded me even more of Final Fantasy XIII was the Goblin Book, a feature of the game. This is a fully fledged book of I don't know how many pages inside the game, and its contents are actually pretty good, but that's not the point. They're all there right from the beginning, and you could lose like an extra hour and a half to read through it all. Just like the documentation when you start a game of Final Fantasy XIII. What the hell even is a falsier or falsier or whatever? Those Japanese guys. Well, anyways, it's too long and it will take me hours to finish. That's what she said. And the rest of the game was already putting me to sleep at that point. Also what she said. So far, the book is only used for one simple puzzle, but I hope it gets more visibility in later chapters, because by the end of chapter 1, it feels like they wasted too much time on making this long and intricate, and very little on things that would matter more to carry weight, like visual details and animations. About the main characters, Allison is a great character. She has a nice personality and pushes the general mood of the game forward. She's a very positive person, trying to put a nice spin into things and coping with reuniting with her brother for the first time in 10 years. I loved Ellie as a character, and I'm eager to see how much she grows after the chapter ending scene revelation. Tyler is also an amazing character. Although his negative view on most things not related to his love for nature, resistance towards Chief Brown and other adults, and overall sarcastic demeanor makes him insufferable sometimes. For what it's worth, this is the best LGBT character in a video game I've ever seen. Tyler has an actual personality that does not revolve around the fact that he wasn't born in the right body. And I find that pretty commendable. Most games and movies will cash in on the gay community by shoving stereotypical gay characters or by turning a character gay out of nowhere. I mean, Tell Me Why is about that, but it's also about much more than that. Tyler is a believable person with struggles and hardships, and I wish more studios followed that trend. The thing is, even though they are a nice pair, you can't hold a story with just characters. You actually need a f***ing story, and the whole finding the truth about something they should actually bury and never look back into sounds too stupid. Any real adjusted human adult would let it go, especially after 10 years being counseled and working as a counselor in a rehabilitation center for juvenile felony. Sound-wise, it's kind of a mess. Some voices are great, like Allison, the mother, and Tyler, but some others fail to convey real emotion. And even Tyler sometimes sound a little off-key, but I think that's more related to how expressionless the character model is than the voice actor. The voice actor is pretty good.
Whoa. No place like home.
Yeah. Would it ruin the moment if I said I needed to call home?
Yes. Completely.
Sorry.
But most of the supporting characters are subpar in comparison with other games of the same genre.
Tell Tessa, but I'm rooting for Butch. She thinks he's too cutthroat. I say that's the game. You tried that new chocolate bar we got in last week?
Oh, no, not yet.
I didn't think I'd like it. Habanero and chocolate.
Although I love how genuine the characters sound when seeing Tyler again as a Mando. Shit like, wow, you look just like a dude, are said a lot and sound very genuine.
Huh. I guess I heard about all that, but I never... Damn, you look like a real man.
So do you, Sam.
You know what I mean.
Because it's exactly what people say in those situations. The music is good. I don't really remember. It was pretty forgettable in general. It's just music for contemplating snowy mountains and shocking emotional scenes. People really tend to forget how great music can make your game stand out. And I know poor man's indie game studio don't have Square Enix levels of money, but this was funded by Microsoft, the one with the Bill Gates guy that's probably listening to this on your Windows PC sound system right now. But the overall feeling of the game is boring. Everything is very slow, much slower than it should. Things often feel stuck, and some puzzles are more randomized trial and error than real puzzles, like the scene at the grocery store. It just failed to do anything for me until the final seconds of the chapter. That hook made it all worth the painful hours I spent walking real slowly around Point Place. I won't rate Tell Me Why yet, as it's not a full game. The next 2 chapters will arrive in September. The second one will arrive tomorrow, and the last one in September 10th, like I said at the start of the video. Giving us a full look into the dark story of the Ronan siblings. But right now, like many pilots, it's hit or miss. It will be hard to rate it higher than a 6, but it has potential of turning into something greater. But considering that Life is Strange is also not that great of a game, I'd be surprised if it got any better. And if you enjoyed this review, press that like button and subscribe for more. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Follow us on Twitter for new information on videos and other shitposting and retweets of shitty stuff. And I'll see you next time.